The firefly who chased the moon. A tale my grandmother whispered to me under the moonlight. Long ago, when the night sky was still learning how to shine and the stars were merely glimmers of what they would become, there lived a tiny firefly named Lumo in the heart of Whispering Woods. His light was no bigger than a dewdrop, but it burned with the intensity of a dream too large for his small body. While his brothers and sisters danced contentedly among the ferns, weaving patterns of gold through the undergrowth, Lumo would hover at the edge of the forest clearing, gazing upward with longing that made his little heart ache. "Look at us," his sister Stella would call, spinning gracefully around a cluster of night-blooming jasmine. "We're painting the darkness with joy." But Lumo barely heard her. His eyes were fixed on the luminous pearl that sailed serenely across the velvet sky. "I am too small," he sighed one evening, his glow flickering with frustration. "Why should I waste my light on mere bushes and blades of grass when the moon, oh, the glorious moon, illuminates entire kingdoms? She lights the paths of travelers, guides ships across vast oceans, and makes lovers write poetry about her beauty. That is true importance. I will chase the moon, and when I reach her, I too will be magnificent." His mother, wise old Luna, settled beside him on a mushroom cap. Her light had grown gentler with age, warm like honey. "My dear child," she said softly, "do you see how the moon's light reaches us here in the forest?" "Of course," Lumo replied impatiently. "That's exactly why I must join her." "But have you noticed," Luna continued, "that even with all her brilliance, there are still shadows where her light cannot touch? Dark corners where frightened creatures hide, waiting for smaller lights like ours, to guide them." Lumo's antennae twitched with annoyance. "Mother, you don't understand. I'm meant for greater things." And so, as soon as Luna fell asleep, Lumo began his impossible journey. Night after night, he flew higher and farther, chasing the silver glow above. His tiny wings, built for gentle forest breezes, struggled against the fierce winds of the upper air. He passed drowsy owls perched on ancient oaks, who hooted warnings he ignored. He flew alongside bewildered bats, who tried to tell him he was going the wrong way. He even pushed through thick, damp clouds that clung to his wings like sorrowful tears. But no matter how desperately he climbed, no matter how his muscles screamed and his breath came in ragged gasps, the moon remained as distant as ever, beautiful, serene, and utterly unreachable. Days turned to weeks. Lumo's once bright glow began to dim from exhaustion. He grew thin and weak, feeding on nothing but his stubborn pride. His light, which had once been a cheerful golden spark, flickered like a candle in a storm. One night, as he hovered weakly in the thin air, barely able to stay aloft, he paused to rest on a wispy cloud. For the first time in weeks, he looked down instead of up. The sight below made his heart clench with sudden understanding. The forest, his forest, lay in darkness deeper than he had ever seen. Without his light, and distracted by his absence, the other fireflies had scattered, their patterns broken, their dance incomplete. Young fireflies who had once followed his lead now bumped into branches, lost and confused. Field mice stumbled blindly along paths they had traveled safely for years. A family of rabbits huddled together in visible fear, unable to find their way home. Even the flowers seemed to droop, missing the gentle attention of their tiny glowing guardians. But worst of all, at the edge of the forest, he could see his little sister Stella sitting alone on their favorite mushroom, her light dim with worry. She was calling his name into the darkness, over and over, her voice growing hoarse with hope and desperation. "Lumo! Lumo, please come home." The sound pierced his heart like a shooting star. "All this time I was chasing the moon," he whispered to himself, tears making tiny rainbows in his fading light. "I forgot the ones who needed me most." I forgot that love isn't about how far your light reaches, but about who you choose to shine for. With what little strength remained, Lumo began the long journey home. He descended through the layers of sky, past the clouds that now seemed to whisper encouragement. Past the owls who nodded approvingly, past the bats who cheated their welcome. When he finally reached the forest edge, he was flickering so dimly he was barely visible. But Stella saw him first. "Lumo," she cried, her light blazing with joy. "You're home. You're home." Her excited calls brought the others, dozens of fireflies emerging from hiding places, from worried searches, from sleepless vigils. They surrounded him with a warmth he had forgotten existed, their lights pulsing in rhythm with his weak flutter. "I'm sorry," he whispered, so tired he could barely speak. I thought I needed to be something bigger to matter." Old Luna settled beside him, her wise eyes twinkling. "Oh, my dear one. You were never too small. You were just looking in the wrong direction." As if responding to her words, the other fireflies began to dance. Slowly at first, then with growing confidence, they wove through the trees in the ancient patterns Lumo had abandoned. Their combined lights created rivers of gold flowing through the darkness, turning the forest into a cathedral of living stars. And there, in the center of it all, Lumo found his place again. Not as the brightest light, not as the highest flyer, but as part of something infinitely more beautiful than any single flame could ever be. The woodland creatures emerged from their hiding places, guided safely home by the constellation of tiny lights. The flowers turned their faces toward the gentle glow, drinking in the soft radiance. Children in distant cottages pressed their noses to windows, pointing in wonder at the magical display. Even the moon, sailing overhead in her eternal grace, seemed to pause in her journey. Her silver light mingled with the golden firefly glow, and for one perfect moment, Lumo could have sworn he heard her whisper, "Well done, little light. You shine exactly as you were meant to shine." From that night forward, Lumo never again felt the need to chase distant glories. He had learned the most important lesson of all, that true brightness comes not from burning alone in the vast sky, but from joining your light with others to push back the darkness together. And whenever young fireflies in the forest grew restless, dreaming of impossible flights to unreachable stars, the older ones would tell them the story of Lumo, the firefly who chased the moon and discovered that home was the most luminous destination of all. Moral lesson. As my grandmother would say, settling me deeper into the quilts. Greatness, my little star, is not measured in how far your light travels, but in how deeply it touches the hearts around you. The moon is beautiful precisely because she knows her place in the sky, and you are beautiful when you know your place in this world. You don't have to be as vast as the moon to make the universe brighter. Sometimes the most important light is the one that guides a single lost soul safely home. Sometimes the greatest magic happens not when we reach for the impossible, but when we embrace the possible with all our hearts. Remember, child, every light matters, no matter how small. And the most magnificent illumination of all comes when we choose to shine together. And with that wisdom settling like stardust in my sleepy mind, I would drift off to dreams filled with dancing lights and the gentle truth that being exactly who you are is the most extraordinary thing of all.